putting the fruit of the tree to use coming up right after this. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to the Garden to Table show. Now in today's show, we're going to focus on orchards. We have two here at the farm. Both are relatively new. This is the most recent one. And we're going to focus on the fruits that come from these particular trees. Not only the fruits and how to grow them, but some of the delicious things that can come out of the kitchen by using their fruits. You cannot believe how good that apple cake is. Now, speaking of apples, the other orchard we have is an apple orchard, and it slopes down behind the house, and we'll check that out in a little while. This orchard is the most recent, and it's made up of stone fruit or pitted fruit, such as plums, nectarines, apricots, as well as peaches. Now, speaking of peaches, a friend of mine's been growing peaches for decades. His name's Larry High. He's a neighboring farmer, and he always has such great practical ideas. I also want to present to you this clever tablescape. You won't believe how easy it is to create and how handy just a few apples can be. But of course, the centerpiece of the show is all that delicious food. So as you can see, we've got a lot to cover, so let's get started.
I've got a very easy and amazingly delicious recipe for you guys today. It is a grilled nectarine and blue cheese appetizer, which is equally applicable in the kitchen or at home on the grill. You're gonna start fresh nectarines. You can use peaches as well. I prefer nectarines because of the skin. The fuzzy skin of a peach on the grill doesn't always work real well. So all I'm doing is cut it in half, take out the seed, and I'm going to introduce a little fat to promote some caramelization on the grill. In this case, I'm using olive oil. Now, the natural sweetness of the nectarine is going to be complemented really well with the sweetness that you are creating off the grill with the caramelization. When you find some seasonally perfect nectarines, they're going to be naturally sweet. You're not going to have to mess with them very much. This recipe just makes them a little bit sweeter. Afterwards, you're going to finish with blue cheese, and you're going to garnish with honey and black pepper, and you're going to be the most popular guy at the barbecue.
I don't know about you, but I don't know many people who don't savor and love the flavor of fresh peaches. This little peach tree is called Diamond Princess. It's a new variety I'm trying, and it's a semi-dwarf. And one of the things you need to think about when you're choosing fruit trees, particularly peaches and apples and so forth, is what size will it become? You can get dwarf, semi-dwarf, or just big standard fruit trees. And I recommend for the homeowner that you go with a dwarf or a semi-dwarf. Now you may think that's going to cut into my fruit production. It really won't. These big fruit trees, a standard fruit tree, will get so large it's hard to even pick the fruit. What I love about a semi-dwarf is that it makes collecting the fruit, harvesting the fruit, so much easier. Now let me give you an idea about how fast these things grow. This particular tree was planted only about 7 months ago. It was in a 5-gallon container, and you can see the caliper of the trunk has gotten much larger. We've got greater height, but the stem size is much bigger. It even put on a little fruit this year, but I pulled all the fruit off because I wanted the energy of the plant to go into creating a stronger tree. I even put a stake in here and I tethered the tree so that it would grow straight, and I'm anticipating a nice big tree that's going to produce lots of fruit. Now my friend just north of here, Larry High, he has some great tips for anyone who wants to have a few fruit trees in their backyard.
Well, it's peach season again, and you can see I'm standing here by a tree that has a lot of fruit on it. And we're about in the middle of the season, and we're getting ready to get into the July peaches, which will be in about a week, and they'll all be freestones. But this one is called a Contender, and we'll start picking it in about a week. But now if you're interested in doing peaches, there's some problems that you run into. And one of them is brown rot, and the other is insects. And this is part of the problem on brown rot. It affects the peach, and then it will eventually consume it. When you start off with a fresh peach tree, there's limbs that are called scaffold limbs, and they come out from the center of your main branch. So you want about 4 of the strongest scaffold limbs. You want an inverted umbrella for all your peaches when they start fruiting to get the sunlight. So we prune them, and we cut off a lot of the limbs so that that scaffold limb will hold the peach. If you've got more peaches than the limb will hold, it'll break them down. When you have fruit on the peaches, you've got to thin the peaches. You need one about every width of your hand, about like this. That way the weight of the peach will not break down your tree. So if you're interested in growing a few peaches, well, 1 tree to 5 or 10 or whatever, a couple of things you need to remember is spray at bloom and spray often every 2 weeks. You got to remember to shape your trees, thin your peaches, you know, and thin them about width of your hand so they won't break down your tree. If you'll do these things, well, you'll have some peaches.
I don't know about you, but in the late summer and early fall, when the pears start coming in, it's a delightful time because I love not only the aroma, but the flavor of them. If you're thinking about planting a pear tree in your back garden, you need to think about exactly what you want that pear tree to do. They can grow to an enormous size. Some pears are better eaten fresh, like these Bartletts, and others, well, they're much better for canning. Here at the Garden Home Retreat, we have a great old variety called Kiefer Pears, which we grow in espaliered trees in the terrace gardens. You see, they're a fast-growing pear that reaches a mature height of 15 to 25 feet, and its glossy green leaves make it an exceptional plant in the landscape. Now, while Kiefer pears produce an abundant amount of large fruit, I have to say they're not the best pear for eating raw. But when harvested and allowed to ripen properly, they can become very desirable, particularly in preserves and things such as this. But there's so many other varieties of pears that are delicious eaten raw, such as the Anjou and Basque and this particular Bartlett. Now what I'm doing here is creating a salad. It's very easy to do, and it's enough for 6 people, but I'm just going to plate up one. And the lettuce variety I'm using is just a Boston bib, but you could use romaine, you could use lovely red sail lettuce, whatever's available. Now what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create the ingredients that go on this bed of lettuce. And what I'm going to start with is a 1/4 cup of vinegar, and then a 1/4 cup of honey. Honey and pears go together so beautifully. So I'm just going to make sure this all gets in there, every drop of that delicious nectar. All right. And then just about, a 1/4 teaspoon, a good pinch of salt I'm adding in here. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to whisk this together. And this is the dressing. There'll be a few more things we'll add. You want to make sure that the vinegar and the honey blend sufficiently. That's what I've done here. And next, what I'm going to take a look at is this bowl of pears. Now, what I have here are 2 of these Bartlett pears. You can see they're thinly sliced. I still left the skin on them because I think it's very beautiful. I'm going to add that to this bowl. Continue to mix those up. And then another crunchy bit, I love texture, is some celery. And I have 2 stalks of celery here. They've been sitting in an ice bath for about 15 minutes, so they're nice and crisp and cold. I'm going to add those to this mix. All right, you can see the color is very beautiful. All right, now we're almost finished. All I have to do now is to take a slotted spoon, and I'll take 1/6 of what I've done here. I want to make sure I have equal pears and celery, and just sort of artistically lay them out across the plate like this. And then, to add even a little more texture, I love these pecans. These are toasted, salted pecans. You just want to sprinkle a few of those on. And then, to give it a little zip, some blue cheese. Love blue cheese crumbles. The more the better as far as I'm concerned. And then I will finish that off with just some black pepper like this. This is so, so good. You must give it a try. Very good. Okay, I just want to take a minute and give you the background on this space. You know, I tend to get carried away with things. In fact, this orchard ended up being 2 acres. Yikes. Now, you don't have to lose your mind like I did and plant this many trees. Just a few in your backyard will be all you'll need to enjoy in your kitchen. But what we did here, just this last spring, so it's a very young orchard, we started with clearing the land. You see, this was just a bunch of scrub oak and underbrush with a few nice pines, of which we saved and sent to the sawmill. This part of the farm had been timbered back in the 1950s, so there really weren't a lot of nice big trees. Next, we had to prepare the soil. And to prepare it, we had to remove lots of rocks. I mean, tons of them. And then we brought in load after load of compost mixed with our clay-based soil. Now the next thing I wanted to do was make sure that we had plenty of open space for our equipment such as trucks and tractors to drive through. So I set out these paths which are about 12 feet wide, and we covered them with our local river gravel. So it really helped make an interesting design. What ended up happening is we ended up with 12 of these big rectangles in this space. You can really appreciate it from the air. It looks like a colossal space. You can kind of see the way in which these areas are identified by color. The center of these parterres or these rectilinear shapes is filled with wheat straw. That mulched the trees. And then outlining each one, we used pine straw, our pine needles. It's a little bit darker. We put those around all the blueberries we planted here. And then of course you see the pathways done in the river gravel I mentioned. Then we set posts where each tree would be planted. In each one of these blocks we planted, about 7 to 9 trees on a very specific grid because, you know, the design of it is very important to me. Then what I did is I bordered it all in the blueberries. And then the center part, just for fun, late in the season, we sowed cosmos seed. And for about 4 or 5 weeks, this was just covered in beautiful orange blossoms. It was a great way to add color to the fall. All right, now, over the years to come, we're going to have more fruit out here than we know what to do with. I can't wait. This is one of my favorite cakes ever. It's so simple to make. It's a fresh apple cake. And I got the recipe from a friend of mine who I went to college with. And it really is perfect for so many occasions. For the holidays, just to have around if you have guests, throw one of these together. I'm telling you, they're going to want the recipe. Now let me show you how to put it together. What you want to do first is you want to take the moist ingredients and put them all together. And what I'm going to start with is a cup of sugar and a cup of vegetable oil. Just pour it in like that. And then a cup of brown sugar, dark brown sugar. And then you want to take 2 teaspoons of vanilla and add that to the mix. And then simply blend all that together nicely. Okay, now while this is underway, we're going to add 2 eggs. These are from some of our girls here on the farm. Nice orange yolks. There's 1, 2, and these are medium-sized eggs. Very tasty. And looks like that's coming together rather nicely. We'll give that just a minute more, and then we'll start applying these dried ingredients together, which will go in next. All right, now I'm going to take 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and I'm going to sift it together, just like this, to make sure all the flour particles are even. And then with it, I'm going to add some baking soda, 1 teaspoon of that, 1 teaspoon of salt, and then 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And I'm going to mix all that together. I don't mix it too much because, well, I'll start making more clumps. Now this is ready to go into our batter. It's underway over here, so why don't we go ahead, that looks great, and go ahead and get it in there. I'm just going to ease it in a bit at a time. It's already smelling very, very good. And this cake freezes very, very well, so you can make it ahead of time. Take it out and thaw it. And I love it served hot. And sometimes just with a bit of butter. It's great for breakfast even. Okay, so there we go. That's all moving along nicely. Now you'll see what we have here is a Granny Smith apple. There are lots of different apples you can use. I like a good crisp apple, a tart apple. My Aunt Virginia uses one called a bunkum that they've had on the farm for years, which is very much like a Granny Smith in that it's very much a cooking apple. So we have an orchard here, but it's quite young. I've only planted it, well, 2 years ago. So we've got a lot of heritage varieties of apples. They each have a subtle difference in flavor, which is very exciting. Okay, now this looks like it's about ready. All right, here we go. We just need to clean off our whisk here. And what I'm going to do with this batter is I'm going to fold in the last 3 ingredients, which really help make the cake moist. All right, let's make sure we get all of that out. I don't like to waste any at all of this batter because it's all so good. Okay, that's close enough. Now, what I'm going to do here is take some raisins. I have 1 cup of raisins. And there they go. And stir all that together. And at this point, it's probably better to use a good stiff wood spoon. So I'm going to change my utensils. Then I've got a cup of walnuts. And work those into the batter like this. It's pretty stiff, so you're going to get your exercise. And then what really makes this cake moist are the apples. And what I have here are 4 cups of Granny Smith apples, thinly sliced. And those need to be mixed thoroughly into the batter, where everything's even and consistent. So if you do this, you're going to get a good workout, or I'd have a friend help and let them do all the stirring. Okay, so I've changed utensils, and I'm in this tube pan. I'm just going, it's pre-greased by the way, I'm just going to evenly distribute this batter. It's very chunky, which is what you want. When you make this, you're going to see just how lovely it is because those nice pieces of apple really make it moist. I just want to make sure that we get it all in here, evenly distributed. Yep, get it all out of there. I always make such a mess with this because some of it always wants to crawl out over the edge. That's just the way it goes. So here it is, going into the pan. Still a little bit more back in there. I never want to waste any of it. It's so good. Now what you want to do is you want to have your oven preheated to 325. And what I like to do is make sure, oh, it's so good. You want to make sure that any of that batter is sort of taken off the edge because that'll burn and around the edge here. And what I'll do is put it in the oven, let it bake for 75 to 90 minutes. Takes a while. And at 325, you bring it out, it's going to look like that. It'll be the best thing you ever put in your mouth. This is the perfect time of year to do really abundant tablescaping, and that's what I've done here using, well, fruit from orchards. And these are various apples. A lot of them are modern and many are old-fashioned. There's a sweet crimson gold crab apple you can see here, as well as some old favorites like Granny Smith, Braeburn, McIntosh, and Gala. What I've done is I've just placed them in some wooden bowls that I've had made years and years ago, and I just assembled them down the center of the table. And while I was at the grocery store, they were selling some of this maize, and I just cut off some of the tips of a bundle of that maize and just laid it in between these wooden bowls. And now if you'll take a look here, I made these little totems of apples, just using larger ones at the base and stair-stepping them up to one of those little crab apples on top. And all I did was use a bamboo skewer and ran it through them and then just stood them up vertically, so it gave some height to the table. Now, with regard to what I used as a centerpiece for my tablescaping and the dishes, you can see that all the colors work harmoniously. I tried to stick with a single color theme, and what I used for the color theme were these placemats. I picked those up at a discount store, and sadly they only had 6, but it's perfect for this table setting. So with the browns and the golds and yellows and oranges all mixing in here together, they really echo the colors of the harvest that we have in the center of the table. And as far as the plates go and the glassware, it's just a mixture of things. Some are some hand-thrown plates combined with some that, again, I picked up at a discount store, and the glassware the same. Some is old, and these little glasses that I already have some great apple cider in are some that I just picked up recently. They seem to fit the season and fit this tablescape. The thing to do is to mix things together, follow a central theme, and this one is, of course, apples and orchards for the fall. And of course, if you'll follow a color theme, it makes a really big difference. And I like to, of course, illuminate the table, and I have about, well, I always go overboard with candles, but it does make the table sparkle. I think we have about 24 of these votives on the table, so when the guests arrive, it'll just be all aglow, and that beautiful golden light will, again, echo this color harmony. The last of the harvests out here in this orchard includes these crab apples. They're so beautiful this time of year. This is one of my favorite areas in late fall and early winter. The crab apple is defined as an apple that's 2 inches or less in diameter. And as you can see, these varieties certainly qualify. This one in particular is called Sugar Time. It has a beautiful white flower on it, and then throughout the fall and winter it's covered with these beautiful bright little apples, and I like to collect them and use them in the house for fall and winter decorating. They're also a great source of food for the birds in the winter. But the blooms and the pollen of the blooms play an important role out here because they help pollinate all these other apple varieties we have in this space. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. Until next time, good eating and good health.